Hello. Today we're going to continue working through our SASSY acronym. So we talked about summary on Wednesday. Today we're going to pick up with the second word that we're going to talk about, and that is evaluate. So what does it mean if we're asked to evaluate something, particularly in terms of something you've read, watched, or listened to? That's really going to be our focus today. So let's start with looking at this poem from Gwendolyn Brooks. It's titled The Pool Players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. It's sometimes also known as We Real Cool. So what is the first thing that kind of stands out to you when you look at this poem? It might be the language, for example. You know, it's obviously using very colloquial language. Just to read through it, we real cool, we left school, we lurk late, we strike straight, we sing sin, we think gin, we jazz June, we die soon. How does that poem make you feel? What are some initial reactions to that? You know, and this is not even getting into things like what do you think it means, or, you know, what is she trying to say? That's not the point here. That's a stage for a little bit further on. But what we want to start with is just how is the work making us feel? Because that's really what we're addressing when we're evaluating the piece. So when we evaluate, we are internalizing and giving expression to initial impressions of a work. These are purely subjective ideas, and again, they're based solely on the opinions we form. We may be asking, how does this work make us feel? You know, and that's a very logical and valid place to start. We usually know pretty much right away whether we are liking something or not, right? We start to form those judgments fairly quickly, and those are based on those initial impressions. You know, you don't have to listen to something very long to know whether it's something you're going to like or not. And sometimes those initial impressions can change. They can evolve. You know, we might re-listen to something and it might start to grow on us. But usually what we're really talking about here are those gut reactions that we get. Remember, the root word of evaluate is value. So when we evaluate, we are really placing a value on the work or the product, because this doesn't just apply to text. You know, we also evaluate all the time in ways that we may not think about. But we're really making that determination based on the perceived value or relevance it has to us. And of course, obviously, that value may depend on purpose and context. Now, here's an example. So if we're evaluating a product, we might be asking questions like, is it effective? Is it a good value? Does it do what it's supposed to do? What kind of ingredients does the product use? Because that might be important as part of your evaluation. So here we've got an ad for a deodorant. Okay. If you're in the grocery store and you're trying to decide which brand of deodorant you're going to buy, you're going to make that decision based on, you know, a few factors, past experience being one of those. You might be like, well, this brand here, you know, it keeps me dry. I can play all my sports. I don't have to worry about how I smell because this product always has my back. But when I use this brand over here, man, I'm stinking again within a couple of hours. All right, so this product is not very effective. You know, you might be again looking at the ingredients. This product has a lot of artificial ingredients that I'm allergic to, whereas this product over here is environmental friendly. Um, if that's important to you. But these are the kind of decisions that go into that, right? So as you're going through that process, you're using the skill of evaluation. Now, when we apply that to poems, stories, songs, movies, paintings, photos, and so on, in other words, works of art, um, it's the same skill set. We are bringing to value those judgments about how and why it's relevant for us, how and why it forms the impressions that it does for us. These are always going to be subjective, right? So when we're evaluating, we're going to use a lot of subjective terminology. So this is where a lot of these phrases might come in. I think that, I believe, in my opinion, I feel that, it could be that. Or talking about impressions, you might start with, this work is kind of strange. Well, why? What's making you feel that way? This work is funny. Well, okay, because of what qualities? You might start to form impressions like, well, this work makes me happy. This song makes me happy when I listen to it, whereas this one over here makes me feel angry, makes me feel disturbed. What qualities are eliciting those responses? I feel anger reading this poem. Why? Sometimes you might look at a text, especially if it's something like a poem, which sometimes poems can be hard to understand on first reading. Well, that initial impression might be this work is puzzling or it's hard to understand. But again, what qualities are contributing to that? Is it the language that's used? Is it something else? Is it the style of the poet? What what's happening here to give you those impressions? But again, as you might guess from looking at this list here, when you're evaluating, and you might have heard all through middle school, high school, not to use personal pronoun I in your writing, but the personal pronoun I can have its place. And certainly when you're evaluating, um, that personal pronoun I is very important, because that is your subjective thoughts, feelings, and ideas about the work. Now, that does come from a certain wisdom of formal writing, which is, if you state certain things, in using that neutral tone of voice, you're still implying your opinion, especially if it's rhetoric that you're writing. So let's say, okay, just for example, if we go back to that Gwendolyn Brooks poem, We Real Cool. If you say something like, Gwendolyn Brooks's poem, We Real Cool, uses street language in surprising ways. Well, the surprising ways part is your opinion, right? But you don't have to state what is obvious, because the reader already understands that that's your opinion, or it's already implied that that's your opinion. But with that said, the important thing here is you're still bringing to bear what is your initial evaluation of this work, and again, that can come down to something as simple as, this piece is working for me, or this piece is not working for me. And that's okay. You know, different strokes for different folks. Everybody may like something different. You're going to have a couple of music selections to think about today that I'm going to give you. Um, one of these songs you've probably heard before. One of these songs I'd be willing to bet you've probably never listened to before. But just kind of listen to both of them with fresh ears and an open mind. And what I'm going to want you to be thinking about, you know, as you formulate your discussion is what are those initial impressions? How are these songs making you feel? Do you like them? Do you not like them? But more than that, I want to know how they make you feel as far as the mood that they invoke in you. Because again, when you do that, you're evaluating. All right, so I think this is a really good way to introduce you to that concept. All right, so again, the key word for today is evaluate, and I am going to turn you loose now to do some evaluating. Bye bye.